Ever since I got these active pedals, I've been asked one question over and over. What's the point in having all three? I'm going to focus on the throttle today, tell you all the pros and cons, and weigh up the options why you should and shouldn't buy one. I'm Lawrence, welcome to the channel. So this video is going to be primarily just a sitting in the rig talking about these. I've been using these for a couple of weeks now, so I've got a lot of hands-on experience and lots of questions from the subscribers, community members. Everyone wants to know a lot about these pedals because some people are ready to pull the trigger, but they're not quite there yet. So hopefully this video will help you to decide whether or not buying one of these as a throttle is a good decision. So I'm going to approach this video slightly different to conventional video. I'm going to go straight into the reasons you should not buy one of these active pedals as an active throttle. Number one, the most obvious one, is the price. We're going to still see it in the comments. People are going to say it's way too expensive, it's a waste of money. It's fine. There are people watching this video right now who have the money and are just deciding, should I, shouldn't I? We'll cover why you should in a later section, but right now, why you should not. There are plenty of other throttles that give a great feeling that cost a quarter, if not less, of the price. They can still work USB standalone, and some of them can even piggyback into these pedals. So there are cheaper throttle options out there. Number two, and this is a big one. So it does like traction control and traction loss. Not all feelings are available. Not only to the Simucube tuner software, that doesn't have all the things that maybe SimHub has, but also things like iRacing. iRacing doesn't report traction loss. It doesn't report traction control. So if you're looking for those things in the throttle and iRacing is your primary sim, that is a bit of a deal breaker here because it does not report those. Right now, as far as I can see, there is no plan to integrate this with SimHub. I would love to see SimHub compatibility, and I think it's one of the biggest issues for some people. It's why you see people buying adapters from the likes of Geezer 3D to attach Simagic rumble motors onto the back of it, which is something that again is a kind of an alien concept. Why would you already, something that already has this capability, why would you add an extra rumble motor onto it? We see people are doing it, which means there is a demand for it. So if I was Simucube, I would support SimHub as soon as possible. Reason number three, you can't mount these in an inverted fashion. So some people have asked me, don't know why you'd hang something so big in an inverted fashion, but people want it. So they've asked me, can you invert them? These Simucube pedals, you cannot invert them. The likes of Moza and Simagic, apparently you will be able to invert those when they have their active pedal solution, but those pedals are nowhere to be seen. So I can't say at the moment if there is going to be an option in the market. As far as Simucube is concerned, you cannot invert them. The next reason I see not to buy them is that they're huge. They're really, really, really big. So if you're on a motion sim, they're an absolute no-no. If your rig moves, I think the added weight will have adverse effects on your motion. So that's a huge consideration. They're also relatively difficult to mount. Even with the Simucube base plate, they take up a huge amount of space. So I have an ASR Pro rig, which is no simple rig. They overhang the back of that, probably a good 20 centimeters over the back of my rig. There are still bits of pedal. So as a result, I'm further out from the wall. So if you're already in a confined space, these pedals will take up extra space. That is a huge consideration for me and probably for others buying them. They're my main reasons not to buy them. If you have other reasons, please do comment below. I really want people to be as informed as possible when spending this much money. So if I've missed anything, this is just from my experiences, but if there's anything that you can think of or have experienced, please do comment because people's money is on the line here. So quickly into part two, the reasons you should buy these. And I know it sounds like I'm probably completely anti these pedals from the first section, but let me tell you, they are absolutely incredible. Would I spend the money? I don't know. I've never been in a position where I've had that much money burning a hole in my pocket and I've had the opportunity to buy something like a set of pedals. I've done it with cars, but it's kind of easy to justify in your head. With pedals, there are lots of cheap alternatives that do a similar job. So that's something that's worth taking into account. But the reasons that you might want to buy these pedals at $2 a pop would be the adjustable travel and weight and everything from a software point of view. The adjustability is even more important than the feel. I'll get to the feel in a moment, but the adjustability is completely phenomenal. And even when you adjust things, you don't need to recalibrate. Think about it with a normal throttle. Let's say a throttle goes from here to here, and all of a sudden you change something on the hardware, which means that instead of going from here to here, it only goes to here. So instead of all the way to here to here, in your software, you're going to have to recalibrate that this now is 100%. This was 100%. This is now 100%. With the Simucube software, because you're telling the software and the software is telling the game, you can adjust the weight, get it feeling exactly as you want, and you don't need to recalibrate at all, which is a huge, like, I guess I do a lot of calibration. I do a lot of setting up pedals, changing profiles, all that kind of stuff. Not having to calibrate is a beautiful thing, and it's such a luxury. At this price point, you're not necessarily just buying good pedals, you're buying that choice. And that choice is worth a lot of money to many people. And I think that probably resonates with many of you watching right now who are thinking of buying this pedal. Another thing, and again, this is kind of the adjustability, but this is my second point. Whether you use shoes or socks or both, you can get a very consistent and great feel between them very, very easily. So even mid-race, let's say you're on a long straight, you're like, geez, I wish this throttle was, slightly less far away, the travel was slightly less far. You can just adjust it, and no need to recalibrate in game, no need to remap it or anything like that. It will automatically know exactly where you want 100% to be. That's a lovely little luxury that I really appreciate. I don't know if you will. The next one, point 3, this can feel every bit as good as any other pedal from my experience so far. That is a huge, 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 huge claim. Please don't take it lightly. My reputation is on the line. I have tried to make this feel impossibly hard, and it's been impossibly hard. I've tried to make it feel like a truck, and it feels exactly like a truck. Massive throw, more than you'd ever need. I've tried to make it feel very rigid, very like a go-kart, like the way a go-kart throttle is. And it just does it absolutely perfectly. I've never been able to do that with a pedal. I guess it holds true for the clutch, the brake, and the throttle, but mainly for the throttle for this video. Never been able to do that with any pedal in the past. Is it worth €2,000? That's up to you to decide. I think it's incredible. If I had the money, I definitely would, but that's very easy for me to say. Number 4 is those effects. As I said to you before, the SimHub effects report a lot more than the tuner effects, but also tuner, there's only so much it can do, and there's only so much SimHub can do, because iRacing, which is probably for this pedal set, and correct me in the comments if any of you have active pedals and iRacing is not your main sim, please tell me in the comments, but iRacing does not report traction control, and it doesn't report the tire slip. So they're big things to consider. If you're looking for those, and if that's the reason you bought an active throttle, that is not a good enough reason. Your reason here needs to be that adjustability, that ability to, like when you're heel towing, being able to position that throttle so that you can easily slide off the brake with your ankle, with your heel, just to heel toe and get those pedals in an absolutely perfect position. It's for those longer stints, or when you have a little bit of, and I'll talk more to it in a little while, but if you have like cramps or aches or ailments, this pedal set is infinitely adjustable to your needs, not to necessarily what's the most realistic or what would someone else do. You can set it up exactly the way you want, so you can get incredible enjoyment from this pedal set. Again, as I say, people are buying those adapters. I had a good chat with Paul from Geezer 3D. He said he uses them because of the things that I mentioned about SimHub. He uses Simagic rumble adapters, those little HPRs, on the back of his active pedals. So you're buying a €2,000 pedal. I say €2,000, it's slightly less than that. You're buying a €2,000 pedal, and then you still buy this extra thing to increase the feel even further. I understand it completely, but if the SimHub compatibility was there, you would be able to get it all within the pedal. So I hope that they I hope that they do that. I know I'm stressing that a lot, but that's one of my biggest gripes with this pedal set so far. Another reason, this is reason number 5, I think. You can do things that traditionally would not necessarily be completely realistic. So, for example, and I'll show you in the software here. So here I've just opened up the active pedal software, so the Simucube tuner, and on the right I just have a set, of course, a content manager. The reason being, you can see that red bar filling up as I press the pedal. What's great here is I can adjust the force. So let's say I want a super heavy throttle, not that I would, a 57 kilo throttle. I can do that, and you see the way this red bar above my head, it's still at 100%. Try do that with a non-active pedal set, it's almost impossible. So where did I have that? That was probably around 8 kgs, something like that. So that's one thing. This one is a huge one. So I have it on 17 millimeters of travel right now. If I want a big, long throttle pedal, I can just press it like this, and look at this input, the bar above my head. Even though it's traveling almost 3 times as long as I had it, that's still 100%. So you can do this literally on the straight, on the back straight, on the start finish. If you just want it to be slightly adjusted, you can do this, which is incredible with no calibration. Your game doesn't actually even know anything has changed. It doesn't have a clue at all. So that is just incredible. Another thing that I just wanted to show in the software here is this force curve. So you can do this for all the pedals, but you could, for example, let's say, so there are some predetermined ones. So this one starts slow. So at 40%, you're actually very low on the amount of input that you're putting through to the game, and then it ramps up towards the end. You can do other ones like this. It's slightly more like an S curve. The thing to remember here, and if you've ever played with these curves with traditional pedals, is that for traditional pedals, it only affects the amount of input that goes to the sim. Here, it's kind of a compound thing. It not only affects how much input is being sent to the sim as you press the pedal, it also affects the feel of the pedal. So when you go for something like this, the start is quite light, but it gets heavy quite soon. And I say heavy, we're still only talking 8-9 kgs here. It gets heavy when you want it to. So like a real throttle, in most cars where there's a cable, there's a little tiny bit of slack in the mechanism before the cable starts pulling. You can replicate that absolutely perfectly, which is amazing. One thing, I always run it on linear, it's probably just habit. One thing you could do, like let's say at around, 60%, your wheels start spinning up. You could, in theory, put a little lump before that 60%. For dirt ovals, for the likes, if you know that this is where your traction, this is where you need to be in order to not spin or not, lose grip, you can press this ever so slightly and you'll feel through the pedal that there's a little lump there. So you can bring it to the lump. There we're at 50%. If I want that to be 60, I can just pull this lump over a little bit, and then here, I kind of feel that lump around there. That's roughly 60%, and it doesn't necessarily affect your throttle adversely. Now, this is important. This is not realistic, but this could help you to be faster, especially if you struggle for those on-track cues, sound, all those things. This could make you faster. Does it make me faster? I don't really use it. I have played around with it. It is fun, and it's good to know exactly what's happening. But I think that I can learn, maybe because I've done it for a long time. Some people will struggle to learn, and this could be the little learning aid that you want. Another little thing, I'm going to stop focusing on the software in a while, but you have the idea of a weight, you have the idea of the throw. You also have this notion of friction, and I absolutely love this. It is literally like there is something just slowing it down. So it's still heavy. Imagine something that's super lubricated, not it's heavy and lubricated, and it just go straight back. Imagine if there's some friction, it'll slow it down. It won't make it lighter, it'll slow it down. And it's not necessarily damping. Now, you can do damping here as well. I don't personally like that damping much. I do like that friction. Now, I only have it at 6%, so it's minuscule, but the difference it makes to me is the difference between an amazing throttle pedal and an average throttle pedal. Some throttle pedals sell one of those little dampers, makes the throttle feel a lot better. For example, the Simucube P2000 throttle, absolutely love that throttle. This can feel every little bit as good, and this one I can adjust in the software. A quick scan of the effects. We've got motor vibration, traction control, and G-force. They're the only 3 things that are available. And as I say, traction control is not even available in iRacing, which is probably the main sim for most of the people who buy these pedals. So very important information. I think that it's important that you know that rather than getting, buyer's remorse afterwards. I don't think iRacing is ever going to release that either. It's a thing that a conscious decision for them. So just beware of that. So that was a little bit of a dive, probably more than I wanted to dive into the software, but I think it's important for you to know, and I think the general theme of this is good, bad, and ugly. The software is one of the biggest parts of this. The hardware can be instructed by the software. The software has easy sliders, and that's really the thing that you're paying for. Ultimately, if you set your pedals up a certain way and you never touch them again, which many people will do, and please mark my words, many people will set it up once and forget it. They're happy with that setup, and that's fine. The setup process was easy. Is an easy setup process worth $2,000? To some it is, to others it's not. If you buy a cheaper pedal set, you can probably, I say cheaper pedal set, all 3 pedals, base plate, everything, for €1,000 or so. Let's take SimLab pedals or SimForge or any of the pedals, really, any of the pedals that have a really good feel. You can get them to feel extremely good. You just don't have that adjustability and that confidence. And this is an important note. When people ask me about wheelbases, and let's say there are 3 wheelbases in a range, Simucube Sport, the Pro, and the Ultimate. Maybe they're not the best example because the Ultimate is slightly different hardware, but generally they're the same hardware. And I tell people, buy the one you can afford. If you can afford the top one, it eliminates all doubts. That's my point here. These pedals eliminate all doubt. There is no better pedal set in the world. There are many pedal sets which are set up better. So invest time in setup. Software, in this case, Simucube Tuner, just allows you to reduce that time every time you need to change setup, or even the first time. You can do it a lot quicker. You can change something, feel it, change, feel it, and do that all within the space of 10 seconds. If you were to do that and have to bring out tools every time to adjust stuff, it could take you hours and hours. And eventually, you're just going to settle. Even with €1,000 set of pedals, you're going to settle. You might have curiosities. How would this feel? How would that feel? Very few people actually go to the effort. So with the active pedals, you get to change that whenever you want. And that will help people sleep at night. I know it sounds silly. It's a lot of money, but that's what money buys you, that choice. And finally, my final point about the pros of this, many people who can afford these are at a stage of their life where maybe they're, a little bit older. So like 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. That's mainly the people that I know in my community who have bought these pedals. Many of those people, me included, can have knee issues, back issues, all that. Posture is very important. You put a lot of force on your pedals, especially a brake, especially a nice sporty brake. So being able to adjust those is a huge thing for me anyway. And sometimes I just don't feel like a heavy brake. I don't feel like a heavy throttle. I don't feel like all these realistic things. I just want to sit in and drive. And having that choice without having to get, and I get under my rig a lot, having that choice is an absolute game changer, to the point where I just want, the same way all wheelbases are direct drive right now, I would imagine there will be many, many active pedal type pedals out there. And that's a good time to look forward to. But right now, we have to ask the question, why is Simucube still, almost 2 years after they first showed these and allowed people to use these pedals, 2 years later, why are they still the only ones doing this? Well, it's not easy, right? And I don't want to get too far into the hardware and how it works. But if you imagine this motor with a worm gear and this pedal on it, I don't know, have you ever tried to push through a worm gear? It's impossible. They're very, very strong, especially if there's a motor attached to it. But even when there's nothing attached to it, pushing through a worm gear is almost impossible just because of the leverage you get on it. Whereas moving that worm gear gets you a lot of leverage on the pedal in this case. So that load cell that's in the active pedals allows them to read just enough to turn the motor so it makes you feel like you're pressing that pedal. This stuff blows my mind. The sophistication in that is incredible. And Moza and Simagic, who are the two who have shown intent in this space, are still, they're probably the quickest companies in the sim racing world to launch products, and they're still not there. That says a lot about what Simucube have achieved here. Many will say it's not worth the money that you have to pay, but there are no alternatives, and it's pretty damn good. We're not talking about a subpar product here. We're talking about something that's really good, as in it could be almost in its final form already, even though they're the only one, which is mad, except for the SimHub support. Really want that at some stage. And finally, this video has gone on way longer than I thought it would. As always, we have the Active Pedals Ultimate, we have the Active Pedals Pro, which I have. I think at some stage we're going to see Active Pedals Sports. That is relevant here because if you're looking for a throttle, I don't think you need the 110 kgs or whatever these go to. I don't think you need that. I don't think you even need 30 kgs. Nobody has a 30 kg throttle. Many people don't even have a 30 kg brake. So keep an eye out for the Sport. If right now it doesn't suit your budget, keep an eye out for the Sport. I think that the Sports, just going by the prices of the others, I think that the Sports will still be expensive. You're still probably talking €1,500 pedal. Is it worth waiting out? The opportunity cost may not be worth it. You may want your toys right now. And there you have it. Everything you need to know, as far as I can see, about owning an active throttle. Let me know if you have any comments in the comments below. Let me know if there are things that I touched on that were interesting. Get the discussion going. It's really important that even if you're not in the market for these, that your opinion is heard. Simucube wants to read your opinions. Everybody wants to read your opinions as long as they're constructive. Please be civil. This is my community you're talking to. I'm Lawrence. I'll chat to you later.